Hi guys, thanks for being with me today. I'm Cherie from Divinevisions. I'm wanting to look at Rasheem Carter's astrology chart today. This is to do with crime astrology. I am not a professional astrologer by any means, but I'm extremely fascinated in delving into this, where we look at the event chart. And I've been learning a lot from Kirst, the forensic astrologer, who is amazing, guys. She's amazing. I've got a link in the description box below for her channel. If you haven't seen her yet, go and see it. It's absolutely awesome how she does her charts. There's natal charts, crime astrology, everything. The mapping, you know, there's been so many cases where she's been correct, very accurate in determining where a missing person's remains might be. It's amazing for locating missing people, and I've just been absolutely, you know, fascinated for a long time. I haven't been able to learn it or delve into it. There's sunshine going crazy. Sorry, that's my cockatiel. I have to apologize. There might be some background noise. I am in a house where there is noisy neighbors, you know, you name it. There can be anything going on, but hopefully it won't be distracting. But basically what's going on is we're looking at Rasheem Carter's event chart from 10:15 a.m. This was the last seen chart, well, one of last seen CCTV footages, where he went to a dollar store hiding away from people who were chasing him and who were hurling racial abuse at him. He had visited the police station twice and they had denied him help. So he was in the middle of trying to buy a charger so he could contact his mum, and she was trying to organise a lift for him. So if you haven't heard of the case, I've done an in-depth case analysis on Rasheem, as well as tarot readings. So you might want to go and watch that first so you get an idea of the situation, of who this person is and the situation that he had to face before he was murdered. Okay, so we're going to be having a look at the last, there's two CCTV footage images, okay, that were released. One was at 4:30 p.m. later that day, but I wanted to do this one first to get an idea as to what was going on around him at the time he went into that dollar store, because he was scared. He'd just gone to the police station, they hadn't helped him in any way, and then he was in the dollar store on the phone to his mum, saying he was scared and he was really distressed because there were people out waiting for him. And we're going to get into what was going on around that time, so bear with me. I don't know every single terminology of astrology. I've just been learning along the way. It's been fascinating what I have learned so far. So let's get started. Okay, so what we've got here is the ascendant, which is in Scorpio right here. So you'll have to look at where my cursor is. In Scorpio, okay, the first house in the ascendant represents the victim, which is in this case Rasheem. And it's in Scorpio, which is interesting because that's actually his star sign. His sun sign is Scorpio. So we see somebody, we got also Sagittarius in the first house, and there's no planets here as yet, but that doesn't mean anything. There's so many more planets over here we can have a look at in a moment in other houses. The ascendant being here usually is the rising sign. So the rising sign is how we might appear. It's our physical appearance, things like that. And being the ascendant, this is usually what's in front of them. And what I see here, I'm not too sure about these traditional deacons down here, but I will go into what I intuitively am picking up on that, because I haven't yet studied that. But it is quite fascinating what can be found with this stuff here. So what we've got is somebody who can be very intuitive. Scorpios are extremely aware of their surroundings, very psychic, and I feel like he was able to pick up on any lurking threats around him intuitively even. So his eyes were peeled. He had eagle eyes, okay? He was eagle-eyed, trying to see, you know, who was around him and trying to really It's like his senses were heightened at that stage. We've got Sagittarius right here, which can represent religion, education, long distance, travel, freedom of movement, things like that. And I'm really focusing on that particular thing of freedom of movement, because at this particular stage he was in a Dollar General store hiding away from the perpetrators at that particular time. Now, the co-ruling ascendant, the co-ruler of the ascendant is the moon right here. So this is also his energy right here, the moon at 4 degrees, and it's in Saturn Deacon here, which is interesting. The second house, interesting that I had looked up a asteroid that reminded me of the store. So it's like, this is actually called stores. So I clicked on that and thought, okay, where's it going to be? Right with him right there. That's where he was, in a store. This is just how I'm doing it, okay? I don't know if this is the exact correct way to do it, but it is creepy. Like, it's eerie, okay, how this falls in line, okay? And when we look at the moon here, it's in Capricorn. Store is in Capricorn in the second house, which is all about money, its possessions. He was buying a phone charger in the store at that time. It just trips me out. So Capricorn can be around reputation, status, career. It is connected with the 10th house, and so it can also talk about restrictions. Okay, so when we look at Saturn, which is the ruler of Capricorn, it's in the 3rd house, which is all about neighborhood, it's communication. And he may have been restricted with his communication, especially on the phone, because his phone was on 1%. Now, if we look at Scorpio's ruler, it's Pluto right over here, which is at 26 degrees in Capricorn, and it's in the 3rd house, but it's also in Capricorn, which is connected to the 2nd house. And Pluto is all about destruction. It can be death. It can be the point of trouble. So when I'm looking at this in the 3rd house, the neighborhood area, the communication area, and I'm seeing that it's linked with Capricorn, which is linked with Store and Rasheem's co-ruling ascendant here. I'm seeing that at this point in the store, he's in trouble. And it's almost like he has this awareness with the Scorpio intuition right here as well, running for his life, and a restriction of movement with the Saturn right here, being restrictions. He knows that he is stuck in this store. He is basically trapped in this store. Because there are men, older men, which Saturn also represents, and Aquarius meaning many friends, okay, many people, because it also is attached to the 11th house, which can represent others, groups of people, friendships, things like that, social. There are others, older men, awaiting him out in that neighborhood. And that was restricting him from actually going out there, because that's when he realized, well, I'm in trouble because they're out there. And it was at this particular time too, when we're looking at the 3rd house being connected with communication, that he had overheard the cashier say, he's in here. So he thought, holy crap, and he had to get out of there fast. And in the CCTV footage, when you see him walking out the door, he kind of pauses for a moment and he looks to his right, as if he's trying to see who's out there, and then he turns left and walks up that way. And if you really look at the CCTV footage as he's walking towards the left, it's a very, it's only a slight second that you can see it, but you can see him turn his head to the right again, like he's on the lookout. And I mean, that's just a natural thing to do anyway, regardless of what star sign you are, if you're under threat. But I just found it so fascinating once again that it's in the Scorpio energy, which is really aware of threats around them and having to use their intuition as to where should I go. Okay, so we've got Pluto, the rulership of Scorpio. Now we've got Sagittarius, which is also his energy right here. And we're looking at Jupiter, which is the ruling planet of Sagittarius. And that's right over here in the 5th house. Now, I'm going to get into the descendant in a moment, which is the perpetrator. I probably should have said that first, but, I'm just going with what I feel. Jupiter right here is the rulership of, the ruling planet, I should say, of Sagittarius. And it can represent in the 5th house you know, the 5th house is all about partying, drinking, gaming, doing drugs. You know, it's recreational stuff basically right here. It can be somebody who's having fun with other people. It's leisure, pleasure, fun. And being in Aries right here, it can represent, once again, Aries is the rulership of Mars, which is interesting, being in the 7th house, and I'll get to that in a moment. But Jupiter is also about good luck, it's expansion. It can represent bravado. It can be maybe if you're talking about drugs or alcohol, being jacked up on something, it's that extra. It's like going extra. And being next to Neptune in the 4th house, Neptune in Pisces especially, well, Neptune's connected to the 12th house, which is Rasheem's energy right there, as well with the Scorpio energy, and these are things that are hidden. And it seems to me that being the womb and the tomb, which Kirst calls it womb and the tomb house, the 4th house is the home, but it's also the grave. It can represent those things. And Neptune in Pisces can represent things that are an illusion. Maybe there's deception. It could be drug related stuff here as well. I'm not saying Rasheem was on drugs. We don't really know at the end of the day what they might have done the night before, and if things were still in their system, or even at that point, we don't really know. But I find it interesting that it's quite close to the 5th house here, and it's also in the decan of Pluto, which can represent that destruction and, you know, death, things like that. Well, this is a womb in the tomb, so the end result could have been that, which we know now, that he was actually hiding away, which is what the Neptune symbolizes in the 12th house, is which is its natural home here. It represents things that are hidden. Being in the 5th house here, I feel like when I've got here Clements here, I've put in asteroids called Clements. There's 3 of them because they were spelt differently. One was Clement Fella, one was Clements, and one was Clement. So what I did was I put those in there because I just wanted to see, okay, where are the co-workers? Luke Clements was his former boss, or was his boss at the time. And this isn't necessarily representing him as such, you know, individually. And we have to be careful because he's not found guilty of anything at this stage. Innocent until proven guilty. This is just all alleged. I just wanted to see, you know, based on the storyline where he stated that his co-workers were after him, where they might have fit in on the chart here. And it just interests me, this one right here in the 4th house is on 29 degrees. Now, the 29 degrees in any chart shows the ending of a situation, and it's right here in Neptune Pisces. Well, actually, it's right on the cusp. It's actually literally, technically, in Aquarius right here. So it's moving into the 3rd house. So we're going from the 4th into the 3rd. So it shows me that they were chasing him around the neighborhood, and they were hiding themselves. They were remaining hidden themselves as they were chasing him around. Now, when we see the descendant, okay, the descendant always represents the perpetrator, and the 7th house represents the perpetrator. And this one's showing me in Taurus, and we got Gemini for the perpetrator here as well. Now, when I see Uranus right on that descendant line and in Taurus, it tells me that this could have been a foreigner, maybe someone who's not local to the area. It could have been somebody that just snapped, maybe even under the influence of drugs. There could be something there. And yeah, I'll get into all these, what these lines are later on. I'm not 100% you know, there with it all, but I do have an idea of certain things. Being the Taurus can also represent a physical appearance of the perpetrator here. And it shows me that someone who might have a foreign name with that Uranus energy there could have been someone who was a companion of his at some stage, or someone he socialized with, being that Uranus energy, which is attached to the 11th house here it normally resides in. So shows me that it's could be somebody that he knows, and this is somebody who might have very thick wavy hair. They're maybe a short person, very stocky built, excuse me. They might speak a different language, have an accent, and could be that they have very broad shoulders and a neck as well. And when we're looking at the 7th house, well, the Taurus is the Venus. The ruler of Taurus is Venus, which is in the 11th house, which is interesting. And Venus can sometimes represent a female or feminine energy, and it's conjuncting the Sun right here, which is interesting because that Sun rules Leo, which is over here in the 9th house, and I've got one of the co-workers' names right here in this house. So there could be some connection with a female for this story. We don't really know yet, but with the 7th house really interests me. I actually looked up the words Laurel and Taylor. Amazingly, there is a place, there's an asteroid called Laurel, which is exactly spelt as the same Laurel Township, where they were all staying in the hotel together. And we see this in Gemini with Mars. Mars is in Gemini as well. And interestingly, we see that Taylor, okay, is in the 8th house, which is where he ended up dying. 8th house being the house of death as well. And Folsom, God, this is so weird. The asteroid Folsom is shown in the 8th house. Now, I actually found that by accident, and I thought, holy crap, that reminds me of like the Folsom prison. And it's in the Cancer energy here, right? The star sign of Cancer, which rules this 4th house usually, which is the home. And it tells me that he was imprisoned at that stage when we're looking at the moon, which is, you know, the Cancer is the ruler of the moon. Sorry, the moon is the ruler of Cancer. So when we're looking at the moon ruling Cancer, he is the moon as well. So it shows me that in this store, he felt in danger, he didn't feel safe. And issues around, if we look at this with the hotel and the home they were staying in, that was their home at that stage, was the hotel, tells me that there may have been some real issues around the hotel. And I'm going to get into that with the 5th house stuff right here in a moment. Actually, I'll do that now. So we're seeing Carter. I chose the asteroid Carter because that's Rasheem's last name. And we've got Chiron, which is all about past wounds. It's the wounded healer. And we've got Clements there as well in Aries. Now, when we're looking at Aries, Mars over here in the 7th house, which is open enemies, rules Aries. So I'm thinking we've got a group of men maybe drinking, partying the night before. This tells a story, okay? It's not necessarily just snapshotting that 10-15. I'm thinking this is telling me a storyline of perhaps something being said that they didn't want being said or found, because we have one of these, what is it, this one? I can't remember which one it is. One of them is in opposition with Mercury. I feel that somebody didn't want something being said. Something might have triggered a wound or a past wound within somebody. Could have been within Rasheem, or it could have, you know, Carter, or it could have been within one of the Clements boys, okay, one of the workers. And that with the Jupiter energy, ego and pride, especially in Mars right there, Jupiter in Mars Deacon right there, and we've got Mars, there's definitely a connection between Rasheem being the Jupiter, okay, ruling planet of Sagittarius, which is his, right here in the party house. And that hotel could have been the party house, right, where something may have happened around a female. That could be something. And yeah, it's brought up a lot of ego and pride amongst males and aggression. Mars is all about aggression. It can be angry males. Being the Gemini right here, it can represent more than one, can be two people, could be two males at this stage here as well, waiting out in the neighborhood for him. Could be older males, being the Saturn right here. And we've got, yep, could be two vehicles. Mars can represent metal, can represent vehicles as well. So when I see Mars and Gemini together and Laurel right there next to each other, it's only like 4 degrees between Mars and Laurel, it tells me that these guys have a connection with Laurel. So that's quite significant right there. And then Taylorsville is right here as well. So there's this traveling in Mars, the vehicles from, you know, between each one, Laurel to Taylorsville right there. That's how I'm reading it. And we've also got Mars. Where is it? Yeah, right here on that cusp there with that that 7th, 8th house cusp there. So it's very close to that. And we've got Gemini can represent people who are, being the Mercury, which is the ruler over here, people who are younger than 30. So they could be just under 30 years of age. It's interesting, we've got the 24 degrees. So is one of them 24 years of age? We don't know. Is one 20? That could be just something, may not necessarily be anything. It's just an observation. But we've got here the 10th house, which is all about career, status, reputation. It can be the boss, it can be authority. And it's just interesting to me that it is squaring Mars, I'm pretty sure. So that tells me there's angry, hostile communication, Mercury being communication, and it also rules the 3rd house here. So it tells me that there were angry men in the neighborhood driving around hiding with that Neptune energy in the neighborhood, and he was hiding, they're hiding on him. And I feel like with the Uranus energy here being a sudden shaker, it's something unexpected. I think they wanted to be the element of surprise and freak him out. I think they wanted to come out of hiding and surprise him. So yes, they were hiding, and it was very hostile energy with this Mars. Somebody was very angry. I feel like with the Taurus energy as well, somebody was holding a grudge with Rasheem. So then we've got Georgia up here, which that's the name of the workplace that they were all working at, Georgia Pacific. And yep, it's in opposition with the store, which shows a lot of conflict, open conflict with this store, with Georgia. So I feel like it's telling me in the 9th house that people are traveling around the neighborhood looking for him, and these are his co-workers from Georgia Pacific. That's what I believe. Yeah, that's what I believe there. And the co-worker here is in Mars, which is interesting, that Mars energy in Leo, and the sun rules Leo. So being in the 11th house, it shows others. It's very close to the Venus and Mercury as well. Yes, it's very interesting to me. So I'm wondering if there's been some, Mercury and Venus are very close here, and I'm thinking, was there some kind of issue around a female or sexual attraction in some way, or some kind of love triangle or relationship? It's interesting that the Sun and Venus are both squaring the moon. Right there you can see it, the red line's going down to the moon, which is Rasheem. So it's interesting to me, and it feels to me like somebody didn't want Rasheem maybe saying something. I tell you what I found when I did a deep dive into this. I'll just grab my notebook. Yes. With the perpetrator in the 6th house as well, with that descendant line, I saw that with Uranus, it could be somebody into engineering or PC software development, things like that. Someone who's stubborn, rebellious and defiant. And it's also squaring Saturn, trining Neptune, and in opposition with Rasheem. So right there in the neighborhood with a group of men, I felt like with that Saturn energy, it's almost like they wanted to teach him a lesson. And also this shows Rasheem's body, because the Saturn can represent the victim's body as well. And it shows me that, you know, he was restricted in that neighborhood. He couldn't really go far at all. He didn't have a vehicle. He was on the lookout, hiding in places. Okay, he's hiding in places. And with the Uranus energy too, I'm wondering, did somebody snap under rage? Being that Mars angry energy, did somebody snap? Also, I'm wondering if the vehicles are really loud with that Mars energy too. Like, do they have a roaring engine? You know, things like that. Yeah, so I've got that somebody or the people may have been under the influence either from that day or the night before. And Neptune and Pluto are sextiling each other, which shows I feel that there was like these dark secret fantasies, that this person's quite an evil person. They had dark secret fantasies, I feel, with harming him. So I think that maybe ego, being in this Aries energy right here in the 5th house, was triggered while people may have been drinking or drugging, and something has been said that may have come out that someone didn't want to. It feels like it's triggered some kind of pride within somebody as well. Ego from that Chiron energy there. Yep, shows that there's maybe past wound has been triggered. And yeah, the Mars in Gemini shows maybe a heated argument as well, being Gemini being ruled by Mercury, which is communication. And being the 10th house up here as well, this could be communication with a boss, okay, being the authority figure. Could be 2 people, being Mercury, representing more than one person. And Virgo rules the 6th house, which is all about work. So when I look at Mercury as well, it could also represent transportation. Was there a work vehicle being used? Were there work vehicles being used? Were they driving work vehicles? So it could be a work-related thing, definitely, with the superior, you know, the boss in the 10th house. And the co-workers may be in the 11th house as well, where we've got the sun, right here, which is the ruler of Leo, which is actually one of the co-workers' names. Now, I'm not saying for sure, you know, that this co-worker did anything to Rasheem. We don't really know until we know. But I just wanted to put his name in there because the family are questioning where is that guy, and I'm not pointing fingers. I just wanted to see where this leads. Is there a connection somehow? It's just interesting, the placements here. Yeah, so there could have been a love triangle, some ego pride getting in the way. Rasheem might have brought up something or joked around. I don't think he was deliberately, if he was the one to have said something in jest or just joking around, he might not have realized how much he's actually triggered something, some anger and deep-seated things within this person that's just made them snap and hold a grudge against him. Could have been that had affected a relationship or some kind of, you know, love attraction, sex attraction, whatever it might have been, some relationship between the co-worker and the female, if there is a female involved here. Also, with the Venus being close to Mercury, it can represent, Mercury can be a witness. Was there a female witness somewhere? And also with Mars being close to Taylorsville, we see being so close to Mars, which rules Aries down here in the 5th house. I mean, they were partying perhaps in Taylorsville. Was that something going on in the night before? So it's interesting that there's Taylorsville and Laurel, which means that there's 2 different places they reside in or travel to, have connections with. And so basically the main storyline I received from this is that perpetrators were drinking under the influence with perhaps Rasheem, because his name Carter is right there, and his ruling planet Jupiter is right there. And he's right there in next to Clement's right here as well. So we've got 2 degrees and 9 degrees. They're not far apart. And then you've got Chiron at 14 degrees. So it shows that they were all together at some stage in this situation, perhaps all joking around, maybe drinking. Being Neptune so close to this as well, there might have been a misunderstanding. You know, it can represent smokiness, haziness, things like that as well, where things are not necessarily clear. You know, if someone's under the influence as well, especially males together, and something gets said wrong, they can become really aggressive and angry, and that pride comes out, that aggression, rage comes out as well. And so what I've basically got is that there might have been heated arguments in a group setting in Laurel and at Georgia Pacific at the workplace. So it seems like there's been an earlier situation that something's happened, and it's then been brought up at Georgia Pacific, and it's escalated there within the workplace. And that was the day before. So yeah, he wasn't at Georgia Pacific on the day that we're talking about now with this astrology event. When he was in the dollar store, he didn't actually go to work that day. But I feel like this is telling us a story that those co-workers from Georgia Pacific are holding a grudge, are coming after him. Yes, that's what I feel. And if you want to look at it too, if this guy, you know, under Leo right here, is he connected? We're not really sure. Could represent that he was a fair distance away, being in the 9th house as well. He may have been a fair way away at this stage. You know, he may not have been one of these people here. We don't really know just yet. And I'm seeing here with the Mercury in the boss authority sector here, because he did say to his mum, if anything happens to me, my boss and the co-workers are responsible for my disappearing. Now, it could show too Mercury being a witness as well at times. Were there two people a witness to something? Was the boss one of them? It could be something, or did he participate as in a pack mentality with ego aggression, ganging up on Rasheem? You know, because we do have the word Clements down here as well in the 5th house. And it seems to me that, and I'm not saying he is responsible, of course, allegedly, it all is alleged, but it seems that something, you know, they were all partaking in that was meant to be a fun time has escalated and turned into something really ugly and scary, and there's that anger coming through. So I feel like, you know, someone didn't want something brought out publicly. The 10th house is something that's public. We've got Mercury, which is communication. Could have been two people that didn't want something brought out publicly. Was this co-worker, you know, with a female? Was there a sexual attraction, being that he, the sun, is right next to Venus right there? Was there something going on with that co-worker and there was an issue arising from that? Was there jealousy involved with this? Because we look at Leo energy is very prideful. It's very prideful. So was there an ego that's being wounded here with that Chiron energy in the 5th house too? And Cancer in the 8th house is connected with the 4th house. So as I said, Rasheem did not feel safe, did not trust these people, and was afraid of being in Taylorsville. He felt imprisoned, being that Folsom prison right there. And we got the Pluto energy, the deacon, that Folsom's right in there as well. He felt imprisoned at that point, okay, at that point of trouble that was occurring right at that moment in the neighborhood. Imprisoned in the store and in the neighborhood. So even when he left the store, he still felt trapped in. So also the 4th house can represent things like a barn or a shed or a building, property. So it could have been even a home, like he might have been trying to hide in those places, because this does show an outcome to this particular situation. So at that point when he's left the store and he's walking around the neighborhood, he might have been hiding in someone's yard or a building or behind a fence, things like that. Yes, and Mars squaring Neptune could be deception here as well, from the perpetrator trying to, yeah, I think there's deception there. So they were trying to deceive him. So it could have been that something that was, you know, they wanted to keep secret, and it might have come out while people were under the influence. That could be something. And if we look at the 10th house too, maybe someone felt that because there were words spoken, being the Mercury, that it could have ruined a reputation for somebody. They might have felt that, oh my God, now I'm being looked at in a different light. Yeah, that could be something there. And when we see too, the squares are obstacles. So when we see the Saturn in the 3rd house and Mercury, Venus, Deacon, saying something, speaking up about something, could have been blocking the connection. Because Saturn can be obstacles here when we're saying, yeah, opposing, which is that obstacle there as well, might have been feeling that he was getting in the way. He might have been getting in the way. So this co-worker right here in opposition with Saturn, and it could be being the body like Rasheem, you know, and if we're looking at the past, something that's happened, might have felt that he was in the way, that he was, may have said something that really ruined his rep and got in the way of something, if we're looking at it that way. And the moon in Capricorn is a detriment. So it was detrimental. It was something that was really, it's not a good omen to have the moon in Capricorn. And we've got Mercury in Virgo. This is an exaltation. Now, I'd have to say I don't know a lot about this stuff. Just from what I've learned is that I guess this was working favorably for the boss or those who were in this 10th house, you know, work situation, workplace situation perhaps. At that moment in time, everything was working out how they wanted it to. And he was stuck. You know, Capricorn can represent those restrictions as well. Yeah, so that's what I've got pretty much. I'm not sure if you guys, you know, obviously there's people more versed in astrology, crime astrology than I am. And I'd love to hear your point on this as well. Like, what ideas do you have that I have no idea about? We've also got the IC, which is on the cusp of the 4th house, and it's in the 3rd house there, but it's on 20, let me see that, it's 28, 29 degrees, I think that's what they say with that. So I'm trying to work out exactly what that means, but as far as I'm aware, it's probably not good being 28, 29, because the 29s is all about the completion of something. And yes, in certain parts, being the 4th house, you know, this is showing the ending of a situation. Neptune, Pisces is the endings. Pluto right here is a transformation, the endings, the death. So in other words, his fate was sealed at that stage. He already had these people out in the neighborhood waiting for him. And I get that, you know, Saturn energy right here in the neighborhood. They were waiting possibly a long time for him. They were being maybe very patient in that because they wanted to get him. They were very much on a mission with that. Yeah. So I will come back another time with another chart, and I'll be able to explain maybe further in detail, you know, a little bit more about what those lines mean, sextiling, trines, you know, sextiles, trines, squares, opposition, things like that. But that really does worry me, the sun and the Venus squaring the moon down here, and then the moon is also squaring Jupiter. So it kind of shows me being his own ruler. Was he his own worst enemy in some way? Was Rasheem at some point, maybe under the influence of something, may have said something that had caused an issue? Because we've got Mercury right here as well, with Pluto. I'm just seeing what that's doing there. Yeah, so it's like I feel like there's been a conversation that's been said that has really brought this about. And I'm not saying it's the victim's fault, of course. It could be somebody else who was ganging up on him and making him feel really crap and trying to bring him down. I do feel that as well. Yes, there's something there. I think that people have been under the influence. We look at Pluto, Neptune, I think they're sextiling each other there. And we've also got Clements trining, I think that's Chiron there. So there's definitely some inner conflict and issue that's occurred, and I feel, this is what I feel, is that someone's ego has been really put out of place here. Yeah, and it's just, maybe this person even snapped. Yeah, so it's an interesting energy, because you've got some people waiting out for him and being really dedicated to doing this, to spend hours chasing him and going after him and waiting out for him like they were hunting him, you know. And these people are hunters, I feel, because with hunting you have to be able to hide in your environment and seek out, you know, your target and be patient. And that's what I feel like these people were doing. But there definitely feels like there's a grudge being held, and they wanted to teach him a lesson. That's what I'm getting here. So we do know that you know, he ended up dead. He ended up being killed, we believe. And these people, you know, it's a gang mentality, it's a pack mentality. And there could be two main ones who were leading this on. Mercury's squaring Taylorsville and Mars, and you could look at it in that 7th house as well, that there's 2 vehicles, which he did say to his mum there were 3 vehicles chasing him the night before. So there could have been 2 vehicles at that stage. And, you know, Mercury, Gemini represents 2, and it can be more too. It could be more, because it then is connecting with the 3rd house right there, which Mercury rules. So it shows me there's many men, you know, quite a few vehicles, and many older men, being Saturn as well, older than him, after him. So we see Rasheem's right here. We see he has the moon down here, and he is squaring the sun. The sun is squaring the moon, and the sun was that Leo energy as well. The sun, I feel like they didn't want something coming to light. They might have been trying to shut him up. We've also got Venus here squaring the moon, and it's in conjunction with the sun. So it could be a male and a female that were opposing, you know, well, obviously squaring the moon, which was Rasheem, squaring Jupiter, and in opposition, Jupiter was in opposition with Venus and the sun as well, and that's Rasheem's also his ruling planet right there. So they really did not want him getting in the way of something. Could have been, if it was a sexual attraction, a cheating, infidelity, maybe he came to know some information they didn't want let out, or he may have said something that that person took as ruining their chance to be with somebody, if it is a female there. We got Uranus squaring Saturn. So there's a block there, which the block was the store, because he was in the store at that stage, but we do see the neighbourhood. So this person might be seeing that there's blocks, something blocking the way, these obstacles from them getting to him. Neptune squaring Mars, so, you know, if you're under the influence and you've got rage as well, it's not a good mixture, and opposing Mercury. So this person definitely did not want something said, did not want, maybe even the fact that there might have been drugs involved, maybe didn't want that being known, that being revealed, that maybe they deal drugs or take drugs. It could be anything really. I'm just looking into this, but I definitely feel that there's drugs and alcohol involved somewhere along the line, and I'm wondering if there's a female presence around as well. And yeah, being the Virgo energy right here, that's around work, routine, rules the 6th house, which is where we see that perpetrator in the Taurus energy right there as well. So this is work related for sure. That's what I feel. It is work related. Rasheem said it was work related matter. I do believe it's definitely a work related matter, being that Virgo in the 10th house with Mercury. Laurel and Taylorsville being very close in the 7th, 8th house, to me it's definitely work related. And I'm gonna go further. I'm gonna go further and say, you know, because I'm an intuitive, someone's name could be Johnny or Johnny, you know, Cash. They might have a nickname Cash. Could have been over cash. Could have been over money. This situation as well. Could have been some disagreement around money, some misunderstanding about money, or a female. And when I looked at another chart, it showed Eros, which is the, you know, I think they call him Cupid, or he's the love angel, you know, he's the love god. And I'm pretty sure it's to do with Aries. I'm not sure exactly now. I'd have to look into that, but definitely represents love connection. For some, it could definitely represent a love connection. I'll have to find out where that is again, but This is just fascinating to me. And we've also got Libra. Venus is in Libra. So Venus is all, Libra and Venus are all about partnerships. It's love related. Venus rules the 7th house normally, which is all about marriage and partnerships. So is there an issue? Is there a love relationship with a female and male here? We've got masculine, feminine energy very close together right here. And it shows me there could definitely be a love partnership going on that somebody was not happy with, or there might have been some real issues around jealousy. I want to see what's going on with Jupiter, right? Yeah, Jupiter, it's very interesting to me that the square and, it's very interesting to me that the Sun and Venus are squaring not only the Moon, which is Rasheem's co-ascendant ruler, but we've also got that it's squaring Jupiter. Both of them are squaring Jupiter. So it shows me in the 5th house something has been, something has happened, I feel, around the party house, the hotel there. We got drugs in the hotel right here, or drinking in the home space, the hotel, which was Laurel right here with the well, you could say it's the defendant, yeah, the perpetrator right there. And I'm wondering also, being Folsom Prison, that's what I'm connecting it with anyway, has somebody actually been incarcerated before? Have they got like a criminal record? You know, that's something else I feel that they could have, is a criminal record that they actually wanted hidden with that Neptune energy right there as well. What if, you know, for instance, someone had an attraction to a female and someone else has come forward and said, oh, you know, and just joked around about him being a prison rat or something, you know. It's not going to be looking good if someone's trying to be with someone. It could be, look, I don't know exactly, but that's just my interpretation, that this could be something along these lines here, where something has been said and someone's pissed off and they didn't want it coming out. It's that Chiron past wound here, and something's been triggered from a past thing they don't want being brought out here. Okay, and it's interesting that Chiron and yes, it's interesting to me that Clements and Jupiter are in Mars right here. So there's a connection with strong connection with the perpetrators and Rasheem in this party mode. Okay, something's happened. And we get this Chiron energy right in the Sun, which is up here. The Sun, and it's in Leo, which is pride. And it's in the 9th house as well. So the 9th house, usually, you know, that Sagittarius placement. Yeah. So it could have been in his distant past that something had occurred. But definitely wanted to restrict, I feel, anything being said. Yeah. And it's interesting, this Saturn really interests me between Mercury and Venus, when we look at these deacons down here, and it's in Aquarius, which is the 11th house right here, and we've got these three right next to each other, Venus, Mercury and the Sun. So I feel definitely wanted to perhaps teach him a lesson, you know, shut him up, didn't want something, wanted to restrict something being, you know, coming out. Yeah, guys, this is just really crazy. What do you think about this? If you've got any idea about astrology, I'm open to hearing what you guys have to say, what your take could be on this. I could be completely wrong. It just seems to make sense to me with everything I'm seeing here and joining the dots. But I can't wait to learn more and get better and better with this as well, guys. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to connecting with you next time.